And the second story, which is completely different, my husband and I were in Albania driving from A to B, and we were in a head-on car collision. We were very lucky to be alive, and yet to have the presence of mind to think differently. It can be done. I'm not exceptional. You want close relationships, don't take it for granted. You have to work at it. You're 18 years old, you haven't got a clue what you're going to do in your career. But do something you love. And the second story, which is completely different, is as recently as 2019. My husband and I were in Albania driving from A to B, and we were in a head-on car collision.
Oh no.
We were very lucky to be alive.
Oh no.
My husband broke his L4. He had to lie down flat for, I can't remember now, 2 or 3 months. I had multiple fractures. I'm right-handed and my right arm was in bad shape. And what does that then even mean? And we were both in hospital for 2 weeks in Albania before we were flown home to London, which is where we live. And what does that mean in terms of resilience? It's really, and I did that instinctively, by the way, in those first 2 weeks in hospital when I couldn't even move. But very, very early on, despite this complete medical, physical catastrophe, everybody says, somebody else who's had an accident, you never think it'll happen to you. I and my husband, we both did the same to each other. We didn't allow ourselves to feel sorry for ourselves. We didn't allow ourselves to be the victim. I also remember a nurse who would come to us, who was really grumpy and quite nasty, not kind, not nice. But because of my experience of that lady who will remain nameless of 25, 30 years ago, I decided, even though you have to appreciate I was falling apart in pain, but I said I'm going to do a whole other X-person's experiment again, and I was nice to her. Every time she looked at me grumpily, I smiled at her. And then on the penultimate day, 2 weeks before we left, she came and confided in me, and she said that she had had a stillbirth, and that was so traumatic. She does not know how to become friendly with people. And if I hadn't been nice to her, I would not have had the privilege of hearing that story from that nurse. And this was when I was not in physically good shape. And yet to have the presence of mind to think differently. It can be done. I'm not exceptional. I really am not. All of you listening to this can also do it. But it's about how much you want to do it. That's all.
Wow. So there's something in your DNA that works. Because here there's 3 siblings. There's, I don't know the order, Shashi, Shobha and Smita. Is that the order?
That's correct.
That's the order. And there are 3 siblings. I see there's a lot of affection and fondness, yet each one is extremely successful in their own right. So how did you guys get raised without any sibling rivalry? Are there a couple of parenting tips to share here?
Sure. This is a very important point, because I really feel that one of the reasons, now with the benefit of hindsight, that I'm so passionate about the idea of unconscious bias and doing a podcast and sharing stories and so on is very much about how I was brought up. Because we were brought up in Calcutta, Bombay and Calcutta. We were born in Bombay, and then we moved to Calcutta when I was 6. So my brother was 12, and my sister is just 2 years older than I, so 6, 8, and 12. And then I was in Calcutta from 6 to 18. So Calcutta is a city I love dearly. So to me, those are my growing up crucial years. And my parents, the way they brought us up, there was no gender bias. And I remember going to a friend's home where I could distinctly see gender bias between the boy and the girl. I took it for granted that my home was how it was. It's benefit of hindsight, I'm saying this to you. No gender bias. No religion bias. Our friends were of all religions. My father consciously chose to change his surname from Nair to Tharoor, which is his mother's house name in Kerala, because he did not want people to make judgments on caste. He hated the idea of caste. He did not care about caste. He did not ask about caste. Everybody was the same. So that was not there. Sexuality. There was somebody in our building who was gay, openly gay. At no point did my father say to my brother, for example, oh, don't go to that gentleman's house, he might flirt with you, it's not good, homosexuality is bad. No, he was just a friend. And we would go to the friend's house, that was it. So we took our upbringing for granted. And I suppose, this idea of public speaking and so on, far before Shashi Tharoor became Shashi Tharoor and anybody had ever heard of him, I remember my mother contacting somebody in All India Radio in Calcutta and saying, I've got 3 children, very good speakers, I think they should come on your children's program. And one of my earliest memories is sitting with these headphones on my head. I have no idea what I talked about, but these ideas. So supporting, encouraging, pushing maybe is how you would see it, but we never felt like that. And then we ended up in my sister lives in California, I live in London, and for a very long time my brother lived in New York, or before that in Geneva. And we were living in different continents. And to us, absence makes the heart grow fonder. We worked extremely hard at staying in touch. We needed to. Now communication is easy, but it wasn't like that those days. Yeah. We work at it. You want close relationships, don't take it for granted. You have to work at it. And that's what all 3 of us do and continue to do.
That's fantastic. I remember meeting you in Warwick University.
I do too, I remember that.
And your brother was speaking and
so were you.
And I was speaking, imagine.
Yes.
Imagine speaking.
I can imagine. I was very impressed with Ranjini Manian all those years ago at Warwick University. And we've stayed firm friends ever since.
Yes, we stayed friends. He's a friend. And if you look at it, there's just that little bit of looking up to someone who's a great speaker. But what I love is I've just found out that your sister Shobha is a fantastic voiceover person too.
She won a national award. Yeah. The president gave her a national award. And she's also a very well-known children's writer. Yeah. And it's so funny, I'm going to show off about my sister, but in Kaun Banega Crorepati, Amitabh Bachchan asked who wrote the following book. And this, I think it was Prince with the paintbrush. A, B, C, D, and one of them is Shobha Tharoor. Oh. And I said, yes, wow, that's my sister. So yeah, we all have different skills, but we all like speaking.
Yes, lovely. So raise the children with speaking abilities early in life is sort of the takeaway I'm getting.
I think so, because it could be that you traumatize the poor children for life, and we were lucky that we were not. Think about a 6-year-old going into a radio station in Calcutta and speaking about whatever. But even prior to that, when we were in school, I'm talking about nursery school, aged 3, 4, we were on stage, singing an Ugly Duckling, or I don't remember, these little English nursery rhymes. I'm that old. Now you have different kind of nursery rhymes. But I think encourage your children to chase their dreams. If they want to draw, buy them pen and paper. My 3 sons love to draw. I didn't say, no, girls draw, boys don't draw, for example. This whole idea of do what you want to do. And you may shoot me down, ladies, but certainly in terms of parenting, your first degree should be a subject that you really, really, really want to do, a subject that you love. You're 18 years old, you haven't got a clue what you're going to do in your career. But do something you love. And that you will get so much out of those 3 years of undergrad. And then think about where that's taking you, what are your skills. I'm talking to the children, not to the parents, obviously. Yeah. And then go with the next stage. Maybe work for a few years and then do a master's. Because I'm teaching at the moment, as you know.
Yes.
And these are all 22-year-olds who are been in college since the age of 18 and are still not very clear of what they want to do.
Right. I think goal setting is one of the hardest things to include in a curriculum. That's why at ChampionWoman's curriculum in Mindful Leadership, we bring goal setting to all the final year college students, because nobody really teaches you that. Nobody talks about that at home. Maybe a few gifted Tharoor families do, a few gifted Ramani families. I was certainly taught goal setting by my mom, but not everybody gets that. So now to be able to do that consciously is great.
I think so. I think alongside with the goal setting also, you have to start consciously, which is what I've been doing with the students at the university, is to start thinking about your own behaviors, about your own self-awareness, about you as a human being. Because if you're all, these young people, if they're all aspiring to be leaders, what kind of leader do you want to be? Is it conscious inclusion or is it dictatorial? Do you see where I'm going with this? And these things start when you're very young.
Yeah, great. So I just have one last quick question. What is your success mantra, Smita?
Self-belief, I think, is really crucial. And us women have a real hard time having self-belief. It's called imposter syndrome. It's called the tightrope bias, unconscious bias. We've got to work at it. Every single day you wake up in the morning and you say that. One of my podcasts, I launched my podcast with Vidya Balan. And she said she doesn't think she's beautiful. And I started laughing at her. I said, you've got to be joking. And she says, no, I look at myself in the mirror every day and I say something to myself. So your mantra will be your mantra. It doesn't matter what it is. But learn to love yourself. Learn to believe in yourself. And the more you do that, I really believe everything else will follow.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Smita, for being here with us and for sharing amazing nuggets of wisdom.
Thank you, Ranjini. You're doing some fabulous work with Championing Women. So I'm so glad to be able to support this for a few minutes.
Champion a woman, she will build the nation.